First of all, thank all three of you for being willing to serve. Appreciate you being here and your family's sacrifice that comes along with your commitment. I have a formal statement that I'd ask unanimous consent to be placed in the record. I had a great visit with Russ Dale yesterday. I've been aware of the work of Governor Barnett for a number of years, and look forward to our meeting this afternoon, Ms. Sedania. I just would say Homeland Security's primary mission, one of their 5 core missions, the first mission is preventing terrorism and enhancing security. And that all fails if we don't have interior enforcement, and we don't right now. So the job, the big job, and I'm so appreciative of Jay Johnson. You know, Ms. Sedania comes with law enforcement background. She gets it. But Jay has managed to put in line effective people at almost every spot as he's taken over Homeland Security. And my hope is as we go through this process that we can do speedily the work of getting you into positions. And on that basis, I'm not excited about a sequential referral on your nomination, simply because I think we need your feet on the ground, and if we have a sequential referral, that means you won't be approved until sometime in December. And so I think that's unfortunate, it's unnecessary, and so I'd love to be in on that discussion. Anyhow, I'm significantly concerned about ICE. It's 20,000 plus employees. That's 15 times what you're doing now. And what we've heard in terms of whistleblowers and legitimate things that we've checked out, the rule of law is not occurring in ICE today. And it's more troubled than anybody knows, and you will soon find out. So I am extremely grateful for you being willing to take this on because it's a difficult challenge for our country. And coming from Oklahoma, and I know your husband's from the big city, Oklahoma City, and when I talk to people about immigration, they're not upset that people want to come here. They're upset that the rule of law is being applied inequitably across different groups. And their question is, well, if the rule of law doesn't apply in this area, why does it apply somewhere else? And if it doesn't apply to them, why does it apply to me? And so the very glue that holds us together, which is you've spent your career, Ms. Saldana, enforcing, is the idea of the rule of law. It's not perfect, but the attempt at equal justice for all under the law has to be the thing that guides us as we look at the immigration issue and I specifically and their very real responsibility for protecting this country. So again, I would just say thank you all three for being here. Thank your families, and look forward to your testimony. Well, Mr. Chairman, make it easy. I don't have any questions for Russ Deo or Mickey. Pretty well I'm satisfied. I have not had a chance to have a private visit with the U.S. Attorney Saldana. And so all of my questions are really going to be directed to you, and I have a ton, so you'll have to forgive me. A lot of them will probably end up being in the record. I'm really worried about ICE. I mean, when ICE releases 600 criminals based on sequestration, nobody seems to know why. Nobody's taken responsibility for it. And I'm not talking about minor criminals. I think the organization has some real conflicts within it, and I think it comes back of whether or not the leader's going to be establishing that we're going to follow the law. The rule of law is important. We're going to make that our mantra, and we're going to do that in a kind and compassionate way, but we're going to do it. So bear with me as I go through some questions for you, if I may. Last month, the DHS Inspector General released a report that Senator McCain and I had requested, which found ICE released thousands of illegal immigrants last year prior to the sequester, and that more than 600 of these had significant criminal records. I'm talking criminal records here in the United States. Are you aware of that report? One, what are your views about the decision that somebody made that nobody will own up to, that we released criminals onto the street? And can you assure this committee that that won't happen under your watch?
The answer to the first question is I am aware of that, Senator. And I will tell you that I understand the concern you have. I think it's a concern to all the American people, so I'm glad you brought that up. I want to speak to that directly. With respect to the general concept of keeping track of people who are in the country and making deliberate, thoughtful decisions, if in fact the pressures of limited resources versus ensuring the safety of the American public, I do that every day as United States Attorney. And so I cannot, I have not studied and gotten behind the facts regarding that report, sir. I will be candid with you. But I have, I feel a very strong commitment that that is one of the top issues that I'd like to study and certainly learn more about. But in the end, all I have done the last few years is enforce the law. That's what I know to do. And I like, and I like the fact that you mentioned some compassion, that there's certainly room for that, but we've got to protect the American public first. And so all I can assure you, Senator, is that I will act in the manner that you are requiring the director of this agency to act, and that is with the principle of the rule of law firmly in mind. But I understand those pressures, and I'll just have to take a look at that, Senator, and talk more about that and with you, I hope.
Okay. ICE Homeland Security Investigations has a complex mission with enforcement that spans a number of different laws. However, many of these laws overlap with a lot of other federal agencies and law enforcement agencies. If you gain this nomination and are confirmed, how are you going to assure us that you don't expand into areas of mission creep? Because I see that's part of our problem right now, is you have limited resources, but we're expanding the mission when, in fact, some other federal agencies got it covered already. How are you going to make sure that we don't go beyond what is truly part of the essential and primary mission of Homeland Security?
Well, I've just gotten to appreciate even more how broad that mission is, but I do recognize, since I work now daily with the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the Secret Service, and HSI certainly, that there are areas of overlap. And we cannot afford today to run into each other with respect to the responsibilities we're carrying out. And just using cybercrime as an example, everyone's got to step up, all the agencies that have some responsibility there. But it's also important to stretch the taxpayer dollar by coordinating and collaborating. I do that as United States Attorney. I sit down with the heads of every agency I work with the district attorney, with the heads of local law enforcement, our public safety, Department of Public Safety, once a quarter. We break bread together. We talk about what we're doing.
I got it. I'm not ever going to get through these if I let you go on with that.
Yes.
I understand it, and I appreciate that. One of the things you discussed was prosecutorial discretion in the area of immigration enforcement, including the need to focus on prosecutorial resources on the biggest threats to public safety. But as ICE director, you would have investigative discretion to determine what to investigate. So my question is would you apply the same logic, focusing investigative resources on the biggest threats? And let me just give you some contrast. How do you compare the threat of illegal immigrants, especially those with criminal records, or those who overstay their visa terms in terms of intending to be a threat to us, as we saw in 9/11, compared with the threat from public safety for fraudulent copyright, fraudulent counterfeit merchandise? How do you weigh those two? And how do you apply that investigative resource to what is most important for us in terms of protecting the homeland?
Well, as I do now as United States Attorney, Senator, you have got to look at what is the biggest threat to the American public and to the constituents within your district. I believe that you've got to assess every case, and here's where process and systems that are in place are the most important thing, because you've got to be able to assure the public that you're looking at every case on the merits, on the facts, and on the law. This is what I would do as one of my first things if this Senate were to confirm me, is to look at the processes in place to determine, to make that very assessment. But it's got to be on a case-by-case basis. It can't be by categories necessarily. Yeah. So I agree with you, Senator. I think that's an important issue facing the agency, and I certainly have kept up and read some of the reports. I want to get in there and work on this issue.
Okay. Senator Carper, do you want me to go on, or you want to? Okay. Let's talk EB-5 for a minute. Over the past year, I and others have engaged in significant oversight of the EB-5 immigrant investor visa program at USIS. It's fraught with problems, including very real threats to our national security, and it has rampant fraud. That's indisputable. In the course of that investigation, I've reviewed a ton of documents, including an ICE HSI tasking that stated the only way to protect, this is ICE's own investigation, the only way to protect national security was to sunset the regional center portion of the EB-5 program. That's ICE's investigation, its own report on its own program. ICE HSI must carry out investigation of any referrals made by USIS involving this or any other immigration benefit program. So my questions are the following. ICE HSI made this recommendation to sunset this program, yet USIS continues to expand this program despite its very real, inherent national security vulnerabilities. As Assistant Secretary, how will you work to ensure that ICE recommendations for preventing national security threats are given credence and implemented by agencies, in this case, USIS?
Senator, you've identified the top priority within Homeland, and that is the national security threat. You've identified the top priority within the Department of Justice in which I serve now. I am not familiar with all the facts and circumstances related to the situation you're talking about. That is one thing that the Director of ICE has got to focus on, is any process that touches upon how we assess these threats and what we do about them. I need to become, if I'm confirmed, I need to get involved, get all the information I can, hopefully discuss this matter further. It sounds like you've studied this a great deal. But the bottom line is, that is the top priority of the Director of ICE, is assessing the systems that determine the severity, the seriousness of any national security threat. And I commit to you I will do that, and hopefully get your assistance in kind of assessing the problem.
Well, to me, it's unexplainable why EB-5 regional center programs haven't been shut down already. I can't get an answer to it. I can't get anybody that wants to take responsibility for it. China steals our intellectual property. They, as a nation state, invade our computers all the time. And they're going to have over 98% of the EB-5 regional programs this year where they're taking money they've stolen from us, invest it back into an EB-5 program, and then put counterintelligence people on the ground in this country with our blessing. It makes no sense whatsoever, and nothing's being done about it. And I would tell you this should be one of your highest priorities, because it's a real risk to this country, and we're sitting there saying, come on, do some more, because we've not shut down the regional center program.
And I will do that, Senator. I will.
The Associated Press last week reported that the U.S. is sharply curtailing deportations. The AP noted the Department of Homeland Security figures show it deported 258,000 illegal immigrants through July 28th of 2014. Same period last year, 321,000. According to the LA Times, deportations from the interior are down more than 40% since 2009. And the Associated Press also reported that ICE is on pace this year to remove the fewest immigrants since 2007. We've had the discussion on what the law says, you know, in terms of the rule of law. This flies in face of what the rule of law is. However, the administration has claimed it has deported record numbers. And the reason they can claim that is because talking about people who come across and are immediately deported, which we didn't used to count the numbers that way. So we're playing games. We've got a spin game going on with the administration in terms of what the factors are about real interior deportations. I give that to you so that when you work with this committee, the one thing you find is we'll work with anybody as long as they shoot straight with us. So numbers are important, and how you get the numbers are important. So if you change the baseline or change the denominator, you ought to be honest enough to tell us that, and I just put that forward. Mr. Chairman, I'll stop right now, and I'll submit the rest of my questions for the record, or I'll get them covered this afternoon.
Thank you, sir.